So Legion ended recently, and I want to tell you guys what I thought overall of the expansion. Battle for Azeroth's coming out soon, so let's go over the last few patches of Legion and what I thought of them. So let's get right into this one with Suramar. Last time I said Suramar was kind of a to-be-continued thing, as I didn't complete the zone and it gave me mixed emotions, but overall after completing the zone, I was pretty happy with where the story went and how it all played out ultimately. Well, I think some of the tedium of it, like the time gates and the follower missions, should be removed for future zones like this. As a whole, Suramar was a very nice experimental idea that I think Blizzard could really expand upon in the future. I wish they would have done something similar with, like, the Broken Shore, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But, yeah, as for a story-driven zone, it got the job done pretty well. I really like the conclusion where they let the Night Well die out, and it's kind of like a mystery until Battle for Azeroth, where we later find out the Nightborn are joining the Horde. But I like how the implications of the zone are going to carry over into the future storylines. I think that's great. I was always curious what was going to happen to the Nightborn afterwards, or if they're going to join the Alliance or the Horde. I originally would have thought they would have been kind of neutral like the Pandaren, but with the way they did it in the game, I like how they handled it, and I think it's cool that they're going to the Horde for the reason they are. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. So patch 7.2 dropped, and we had the Broken Shore and the Tomb of Sargeras content, as well as Legion invasions. This was a pretty good patch in my opinion. I've seen a lot of people criticize the raid of Tomb of Sargeras, but I want to start with the world content. There was stuff in it that did let me down a little bit. I would have liked to see a little bit more story from Legionfall rather than us just collecting things and just doing bullshit. The Anduin cutscene with Gen was fantastic, and Velen, I really enjoyed that. But other than that, the story in the Broken Shore was a little bit lacking. Khadgar's puns, too, those are getting out of hand in that zone. I would have liked to see a little bit more build up to kill Jaden, maybe have a plot involving him. Considering his title is the Deceiver, we really didn't see him do that much in Legion, which was kind of a little bit of a disappointment, because I do like Kill Jaden a lot as a character. So, the raid, Tomb of Sargeras, what did I think of that? Well, a lot of people hated on it, and I can definitely see the bosses where they felt it was like poorly designed. There was a lot of one-shot mechanics in the raid that I didn't care for personally, such as the Maiden and Kill Jaden's boss fight. But visually, I did like Tomb of Sargeras a lot. I liked the mixture of the old elven architecture with the Fel. I thought that was nice. I know everybody's a little bit felled out right now, but I enjoyed that bit of it. I would have maybe liked to see a little bit more diversity in the bosses. There's too many soak mechanics in the raid, and I think that's something that kind of brought it down a little bit. But Tomb, so far, has been the raid that I did the most, surprisingly. I was a little bit busy with real-life stuff at the time, with Nighthold, although I did prefer that raid ultimately to Tomb of Sargeras, but overall, my favorite fight in Tomb of Sargeras was probably Fallen Avatar, as it challenged your raid team, and the final part was very cool when he breaks the floor. I want to say Kill Jaden was my favorite fight, but I can't, because something about the mechanics, I just felt they were a little bit too punishing on Heroic. If your raid missed Armageddon, your raid basically wiped. It was simple as that, and some people say I like the challenge, but a little bit too punishing. There should have been more recovery mechanics, I feel like, and they could have had more of the fight involving, like I said, the Deceiver, more parts of him that way. So, but I did like the overall theme of the fight, fighting him on the spaceship, and then at the end of it, you're outside of Argus. I thought that was very cool. So, I think when people say Tomb was one of the worst raids ever made, it's kind of bullshit, to tell you guys the truth. I thought Tomb was okay. It could have been a little bit better, but overall 7.2 I suppose is kind of a solid patch. One last complaint about it, I would have liked to see maybe a mount from Legionfall, so that was kind of a bummer.
Is everyone all right? What have you done?
Sometimes the hand of fate must be forced.
The other thing I wanted to talk about 7.2 before we move on is the Mage Tower. Fantastic feature in Legion. I've only done it in my Warrior, and I'm working on it in my alts. I highly suggest you get on that if you haven't, because it's going away in the next expansion. So if you want those weapon models, if you're on your Demon Hunter alt like I am, and you want those Illidan glaives forever that he has in Legion, you gotta get on that Demon Hunter and get to that Mage Tower right now and fight Xylem. Agatha was pretty tough for my Fury Warrior. I completed it when I was around 925 item level, I believe, and it was still pretty tough. A lot of mechanics. You miss one cooldown, you die. Definitely teaches you a lot about your class, though, and I highly recommend you do it just to grow as a player. So up next we have patch 7.3, and guys, I gotta say I love this patch. I love all the lore bombs it dropped. It's probably my favorite patch since Fall of the Lich King and the Siege of Orgrimmar. Honestly, there's just so much to it. I love the lore bombs it drop. I love the scene where Illidan rejects the gift from Zera. I love the interactions between Illidan and Velen, and the introduction to Illyria and Turalyon. They're such interesting characters, and I'm very excited to see where Blizzard goes with those two. There's just so much to it. Argus is so cool. It's somewhere I've wanted to go since I was a little kid and they announced the Draenei. I'm not even joking. I've been waiting for this for ages. And while and whole expansion might have been kind of cool, I enjoy for what it is. I love each of the zones. Crocun, I love the music on it. I love the music in Makari. The only area I'm not really a fan of is Antoran Waste because it's so crowded. But gameplay-wise, I mean, lore-wise, I understand why there's so much defense there, and it should be hard to get around. But just some of the landscapes are a little bit hard to traverse unless you're playing a Demon Hunter. But as for the questing experience in Shadows of Argus, Blizzard did an awesome job on this, and it's like I was talking about earlier in the video with Suramar. You know, while there were time gates in this one, it didn't feel like there was the bullshit in between of having to wait for follower missions or having to collect 300 mana. They released the storylines each week, and I thought it was paced out pretty well. I felt like there was a good amount of content because you had the world stuff to do afterwards, the world quests, the rewards with the Argonite, motivation to gear your alts and the mounts. It was just an overall fun patch. The storyline was fun, filled with some very cool moments like I talked about earlier. So overall, I'd give Blizzard an A+ on this one. And the addition of the Vindicar was a fun mechanic that we haven't seen in World of Warcraft before. I'm hoping we see something similar to it in Battle for Azeroth with all the boats and sailing in it. I think that would be pretty cool. Another great feature in patch 7.3 was the Netherlight Crucible. It's basically another form to upgrade your artifact weapon, and I thought it was good to have another form of progression in Legion to keep players occupied until the end. Another feature in this patch is the Legion invasions in Argus. I think these are a pretty good feature as they motivate you to log on weekly and get Argonite for your gear, so very good on that, Blizzard. So the last thing I want to talk about in this video is Antorus, the Burning Throne. It's a really fun raid, and if you haven't played through it, I highly recommend you go try it out. Probably going to hold me over for another 4 or 5 months, and probably a little bit longer if Blizzard releases those allied races soon. That'd be pretty cool. But as for the raid, the bosses are fun. I have a few I don't like, but for the most part, I enjoy all the fights in there. Argus the Unmaker. What a badass final boss, from the music to the mechanics. It's just so cool. It brought me back to my Lich King days, and I really, really enjoyed this fight. So, the ending of Legion. I almost did a whole video on this, but I figured I would save it for this. I love the ending of this expansion, guys. Illidan's arc ends perfectly. He ends up becoming the jailer of Sargeras, and we don't know his fate. But the best part of this ending, and holy shit, it was when Sargeras stabbed the planet, guys. This is one of my favorite moments in Warcraft lore in general. It's one of those things like, holy shit, you just don't expect that to happen. And the implications it's going to have in Battle for Azeroth, I'm very curious to see. I know we're going to lose our artifact weapons to get rid of it, so that's kind of a bummer. But overall, and the best part of the cutscene for me was at the end where Velen's looking up and he sees Argus fading in the distance, and then he has that sigh of relief. Just after all the stuff that his race has been through, all of his people, it's finally over for him. And I feel like that was such a great end to his arc. He took action. He stopped the Burning Legion. Fantastic. I loved every second of it. The other thing about the ending that I did like, though, is they did leave it open to find out maybe if Sargeras is going to help us fight the Void Lords eventually. We'll have to see how it goes, but overall, very excited to see where they go with that. So what's coming next for World of Warcraft, guys? Well, I think the allied races of Legion, just the story implication of it, them joining up with the Alliance and the Horde is awesome. It makes the storyline feel like it has lasting impact. Like, when I was questing through Suramar, I was like, well, are we just going to leave the Nightborn behind after this? It's kind of lame. But the fact that they're joining the Horde, I'm very excited about. I'm actually going to possibly roll one as a main just because I love their lore and their architecture so much. I really just love the idea of playing a Nightborn mage. An illusion. What are you hiding? But seriously, it's going to be pretty badass. And the Lightforge and the Void Elves and the High Mountain Torn, it's good because it feels like the lore is coming with us, and there was no non-lasting impact of this expansion, from Azeroth getting stabbed to these new races and the factions. Well, I think the faction war right afterwards is a little weird. There's a YouTuber I watched named Bellular Gaming, and he kind of explained it in a weird way why it actually makes sense after Legion, and he kind of changed my perspective on it, so I'm pretty excited to see where the story is going to go from here. But overall, guys, if you want to know where I feel Legion ranks, in my video before, I put it next to Burning Crusade, but overall, I'd say Legion was my third favorite expansion behind Wrath of the Lich King and Mists of Pandaria. It was that good. I love this. I'd put it over Burning Crusade and Vanilla for me. The story was awesome. It kept me playing throughout, and the gameplay was fantastic. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy World of Warcraft. Don't get yourself burnt out, and definitely have a good time playing the rest of Legion.